Pride and Prejudice, Chapter 8, first video. At 5 o'clock, the two ladies retired to dress, and at 6:30, Elizabeth was summoned to dinner. To the civil inquiries which then poured in, and amongst which she had the pleasure of distinguishing the much superior solicitude of Mr. Bingley's, she could not make a very favorable answer. Keep in mind that the syntax in Jane Austen is always a little bit more complex, right? So I'm going to read it one more time. Just let me give you two words here. The first is civil. Civil is not just the meaning you already know. Civil here is polite, let's put it this way. The definition I have here is sufficiently observing or befitting accepted social usages. Okay, and then we have the word solicitude, that is the state or quality of being solicitous. So what is solicitous, right? It means that you are there to help the person, right? You are anxious or concerned to help the person. So at 5 o'clock, the two ladies retired to dress, and at 6:30, Elizabeth was summoned to dinner. The civil inquiries which then poured in, and then imagine there is a parenthesis here, okay? To the civil inquiries which then poured in, parenthesis, she could not make a very favorable answer. Okay, that's the original sentence. To the civil inquiries, to the polite inquiries, she could not make a favorable answer. So her answer was not the best, right? Why? Because her sister was not better. Now I'm going to read it again and insert the parenthesis. Let's put it this way. To the civil inquiries which then poured in, and amongst which she had the pleasure of distinguishing the much superior solicitude of Mr. Bingley's, she could not make a very favorable answer. Jane was by no means better. The sisters, on hearing this, repeated 3 or 4 times how much they were grieved, how shocking it was to have a bad cold, and how excessively they dislike being ill themselves, and then thought no more of the matter. And their indifference towards Jane, when not immediately before them, restored Elizabeth to the enjoyment of all her former dislike. So Elizabeth went back to her dislike of the sister because she knew that the concern, so, oh my God, we are so much grieved that your sister is like this. It's just because she gave the news right now, right after they played their social role, right? Of being concerned. They just went on with their lives. Their brother, indeed, was the only one of the party whom she could regard with any complacency. His anxiety for Jane was evident, and his attentions to herself most pleasing, and they prevented her feeling herself so much an intruder as she believed she was considered by the others. She had very little notice from any but him. Keep in mind here, notice is attention, okay? Respectful attention. She had very little notice from any but him. Miss Bingley was engrossed by Mr. Darcy. Her sister is scarcely less so. Engrossed is occupy the complete attention, okay? Absorb, you will see in the Quizlet, there is a very nice picture of a baby, and the baby seems to be very interested in the book. So Miss Bingley was completely engrossed by Mr. Darcy, her sister scarcely less so. And as for Mr. Hurst, by whom Elizabeth sat, he was an indolent man, who lived only to eat, drink, and play at cards, who when he found her to prefer a plain dish than a ragout, had nothing to say to her. Okay, so what is a ragout? A ragout is a kind of stew. Let me give you the definition here. A well-seasoned stew of meat and vegetables. That's a ragout. I put two pictures there. One picture with the word and the definition of ragout, and the other with the word and the phonetical transcript of ragout. Don't confuse and don't say rag out. That was my first try when I read Jane Austen for the first time. I used to say rag out. Rag out doesn't exist, okay? So it's a ragout. If I'm not wrong, it's the name is French, if I'm not wrong. It would explain why O-U-T is pronounced as U, you know, ragout. So apparently Mr. Hurst started a conversation with Lizzie, but when he found out that she preferred, you know, a plain dish and she wouldn't talk about food so much, then he had nothing else to say to her. When dinner was over, she returned directly to Jane, and Miss Bingley began abusing her as soon as she was out of the room. Abusing here, of course, we're talking about gossiping and talking trash about her, right? So as soon as she left the room, you know, Miss Bingley, keep in mind every time we're talking about Miss Bingley, we're talking about the one that is not married, right? Because the one that is married is not Miss Bingley anymore, you know that, right? It is Mrs. Hurst. Her manners were pronounced to be very bad indeed. I mean Lizzie's manners. A mixture of pride and impertinence. She had no conversation, no style, no beauty. Mrs. Hurst thought the same and added, "She has nothing, in short, to recommend her, but being an excellent walker. This is the only quality she has. She's an excellent walker. I shall never forget her appearance this morning. She really looked almost wild." "She did indeed, Louisa. I could hardly keep my countenance. Very nonsensical to come at all. Why must she be scampering about the country because her sister had a cold? Her hair so untidy, so blousy." Gossip, right? But it's kind of gossip with lots of vocabulary, so it's interesting gossip, right? Countenance is a facial expression. I put the picture, like 6 pictures of an actress there with different countenances for you to remember, right? Scamper is to run hastily or lightly, and then I put a picture of a deer, you know, a young deer, like Bambi, you know, just scampering on a field. And then blousy, having a coarse, ruddy complexion. Let me just see if we've seen. Yeah, we have seen blousy. Yeah, right in the end, right? So having a red face, right? I put a very nice picture of a movie called, if I'm not wrong, it's Monster. I think in Portuguese it was translated as Monstro Instinto Assassino. But it's a very good movie. You know, it's about a serial killer in the United States. Well, that's not important, but her face is very blousy. But of course, we're talking about her hair, right? Because take a look. Her hair so untidy, so blousy. So a second meaning for blousy is exactly this, disheveled. Disheveled is a very nice word I would like you to remember. And unkept Okay, disheveled I like because it's connected with French. French, we have the word cheveux, and cheveux is hair. So if you are décheveux, but you don't say décheveux, you say disheveled. So it means that your hair is messy. Countenance, that is your facial expression. Scamper, just like Bambi. And blousy. So let me read it one more time for you. She did indeed, Louisa. I could hardly keep my countenance. Because, I don't know, she wanted to make a face of shock or something. Very nonsensical to come at all. Why must she be scampering about the country? Because her sister had a cold? Her hair so untidy, so blousy. Yes, and her petticoat. I hope you saw her petticoat. 6 inches deep in mud. I am absolutely certain. And the gown, which had been let down to hide it, not doing its office. I didn't put in our list there, but office here, it's like its job. Let's understand something before we go to this office. Remember that there is a petticoat. What is a petticoat? A petticoat is like underwear for women that, it's just, it's like a dress. The best way to define it. It's like a dress, but it's underwear. All right? I put a picture of a woman showing her petticoat. And then a gown is much more like a formal dress. Okay, so keep in mind, Lizzie had been running or walking through mud, right? So probably she lifted her gown, and then, but of course, she couldn't lift her petticoat because it would be indecent, right? So when she got to the house there, she let her gown down, all right? But the sisters saw it, and now they can gossip, right? So take a look. I'm going to read it again. Very nonsensical. No, sorry. Yes, in her petticoat. I hope you saw her petticoat. 6 inches deep in mud. I am absolutely certain. And the gown, which had been let down to hide it, not doing its office, meaning didn't hide anything at all.